screaming in pain and sorrow. In legend and in fact, it is known as
I'm well aware that my brain does not work in the same way that a lot of other people's brains tend to work. My mind has strange interconnections, so I'm inviting you to follow me down this particular rabbit hole where the announcement of the release of a Japanese fighting game for the Nintendo Switch led me to anarchism, to Emma Goldman, to the popular conceit that the left can't meme, and to the state of politics that we all exist in at the moment. So, time to join Mr. Grimm's wild ride. SNK, that series was kind of second tier to Street Fighter. You may have seen the machines in larger arcades, and you may have snuck on and had a game while everyone else was playing Street Fighter, that kind of thing. But they've been fairly persistent, they've kept going, and so this latest game has come out on the family-friendly Switch, the new Nintendo platform. And it's pretty much your standard side-on beat-em-up fare, except it's all the ladies from the SNK series, and you get to play dress-up with them, and there's plenty of fan service and sexiness, and so on. And so, rather predictably, certain outlets, certain reviewers have tended to linger on the fact that it has fan service and Big Ol Anime Tiddies, and that they don't like it. More, perhaps, than they have focused on whether the game is any good or not. Whether it is or not, who really knows? Some people have said some things about the gameplay, but the thing that's overarching is this idea that fan service is bad and wrong, the female form is bad and wrong, and plenty of people seem to have a numerous, even limitless supply of sticks up their asses about this sort of thing. And this got me thinking, that there's a quote attributed to Emma Goldman. The quote is popularly remembered as, "A revolution without dancing isn't a revolution worth having." It's not entirely accurate. It's like Voltaire. The quotes get muddied. And since I pride myself on accuracy, the full context and quote is, "At the dances, I was one of the most untiring and gayest. One evening, a cousin of Sasha, a young boy, took me aside. With a grave face, as if he were about to announce the death of a dear comrade, he whispered to me that it did not behoove an agitator to dance, certainly not with such reckless abandon anyway. It was undignified for one who was on the way to become a force in the anarchist movement. My frivolity would only hurt the cause." I grew furious at the impudent interference of the boy. I told him to mind his own business. I was tired of having the cause constantly thrown into my face. I did not believe that a cause which stood for a beautiful ideal, for anarchism, for release and freedom from convention and prejudice, should demand the denial of life and joy. I insisted that our cause could not expect me to become a nun, and that the movement would not be turned into a cloister. If it meant that, I did not want it. I want freedom, the right to self-expression, everybody's right to beautiful, radiant things. Anarchism meant that to me, and I would live it in spite of the whole world. Prisons, persecution, everything. Yes, even in spite of the condemnation of my own closest comrades. I would live my beautiful ideal. Well, alright, but what does that have to do with Big Ol Anime Tiddies? I think if you look at what she said in the full context, it becomes even more relatable and apparent to the current age in which we find ourselves. The revolutionaries have become the traditionalists worried about Sorry, am I in your way? I'll move. Better? Alright then. So yeah, what was my point? Yeah, the prudishness is now coming from the people who are supposedly revolutionary. The anti-sex attitudes are coming from those who are supposedly revolutionary. The demand that people shame themselves and cover up on all the rest. It's either coming from them or it's coming from corporations who are being pressured by them. Or it's coming from the right wing who are using useful idiots on the so-called left to do the same thing. I mean, the porn ban in the UK, for example, that's coming into force. All the rest of it is increasing restriction and rejection to the point where a lot of Japanese games, which I guess is where the anime tiddies come in, aren't even bothering to come over to the UK or the US or the EU because of the prudish attitude that's being presented. And let's be clear, it's not an attitude that's coming from the consumers, it's coming from the critics. So that's the situation in which we find ourselves, and it's obvious, it seems to me, that the left just has no sense of humour or sense of fun anymore, at least not the left as it exists. I mean, I'm left-wing and I do. And related to that is this idea that the left can't meme that came out during the great meme wars of the last few years. And they're right. The left mostly can't meme. And I would know. I can tell by some pixels and having seen some memes in my time. You know, I can recognise that fact, but it doesn't make sense. Because comedy has long been a stronghold of the left, of the anti-authoritarian, of the revolutionary. But it's now one of the most strictly policed arenas you can have. If a comedian is insufficiently woke, they're screwed. They can't go onto college campuses and perform. You know, TV shows and specials are thin on the ground because they might say and do something wrong. And kind of the whole point of comedy is to do something wrong. I mean, it didn't used to be like this. The left used to make fun of itself, like Rick on The Young Ones, for example. And then there's plenty of other examples. But now that the dynamic has changed, it doesn't mean that the right, in terms of the establishment right, or even the right at all really, has learned how to make jokes or have fun particularly. It's just that the left has become po-faced and we all carry around a computerized Stalin in our pocket watching for the slightest wrong move so they can purge us. It's not good for anybody, it's certainly not good for the left. And this censorious left I'm talking about has lost so much ground because of it, because they've forgotten how to have fun. And because they take everything so seriously, they're constantly getting fooled by things like milk drinking, or the OK symbol, or Pepe the Frog, or whatever else. They take it all deadly seriously, while everyone else just laughs at them. And that's a problem, because we need an authentic and effective tension between the collectivist and the individualist, between the left and the right, between the authoritarian and the libertarian, to function, to find our way. Society has to constantly evolve, politics has to constantly evolve, and otherwise it becomes dangerous and off-kilter and no good for anybody. What the left calls problematic is often what the right wing also calls degenerate, so you just can't win with either side of these people. But if you're not on the side of sex and fun and jokes, odds are you're on the wrong side. You're certainly probably in the long run going to be on the losing side, and the more repressive you get, the more repressed people's sexuality gets, the more the powder keg builds until it will eventually explode. I mean, these are fundamental things about people, and it's not as if the left doesn't have a long and storied tradition. I mean, Goldman, she was unconventional, took a lot of lovers, bit of a hottie in her younger years. Wells had an unconventional family. Other groups of people, other famous left-wing authors and politicians and so on, have had, you know, consenting affairs with the full knowledge of their partner, open marriages, group marriages, all manner of filth, degeneracy and problematic behaviour. And that's because they were unconventional and anti-authoritarian, the things you need. You know, they were fun. They reached out and they grasped life and they made the most of it. And if you're on the opposite side of that, you're not on a good side at all. And that's where Anime Tits led my weird little brain's train of thought. And, you know, in the grand scheme of things, anime tits are inconsequential, but then you can say that for any art, for any literature, for any play, any poem, any story. It's all frivolous and fun and unimportant, and that's paradoxically what makes it so important. I, for one, am glad to be a problematic degenerate. Zang.
SNK Heroines,
I'm a ninja. Yo, my life is like a video game. My main thing when I'm in the zone. One player, one life in the mark. Remember the dog.
Go ninja, go!
No fucking it down. I'm cutting down anyone I'm apart. Trying to fuck up my game with razor sharp political throw stars. Cheer my flows on horse style.
What happened today? See, I don't like the, I have, okay, like a lot of you, I hate a lot, you know? But I hate with style and creativity.